Hello. This is take 2 for this video because the first half of it I filmed with my microphone switched off, which is, you know, incredibly helpful. But anyway, we're giving it another go. This is my final Owls wrap-up. The Owls come to an end today, the 30th of April, and I cannot believe that I actually managed to read all 12 books in this read-a-thon, and I had so much fun doing it. So thanks again to Book Roast for hosting this one. It's been so much fun and I've absolutely loved everything that I've read this month. I am still going to be doing an end of the month wrap-up because there were a few books that I read that weren't part of the read-a-thon, so that will be up in a couple of days. But getting into the final reads for the Owls, the first book that I picked up was Stardust by Neil Gaiman, and I've seen the film adaptation for this book several times, not for a number of years now, but quite a few times. So I already knew what the plot for this story was going to be, and actually because it's such a short book, it's only 194 pages, the plot of the film, from what I can remember of the film, is very true to the plot that's in this story. And in fact, I'm pretty sure that the film adds in a couple of plot lines, probably just to bump up the runtime a little bit and also to add some more action. In Stardust, we follow a character named Tristan Thorn, who lives in the town of Wall, which is a very conservative place. And the town of Wall is, perhaps unsurprisingly, surrounded by a wall, and there is just one gap in the wall, and people aren't allowed to go out and people aren't allowed to come in. But Tristan Thorn and his love interest, Victoria, see a falling star, and Tristan vows to go and fetch that fallen star for his true love, Victoria, and all sorts of fun and hijinks ensue when he does so. I'm not going to tell you any more than that because it's a very short book and I don't want to spoil anything. But as I anticipated from the film, this is a very fun and whimsical book that surprisingly is written in sort of like a fairy tale kind of style, and it's also got that almost childlike quality. But there are some scenes that are slightly juxtaposed against that because they're not necessarily graphic, but there's some explicit reference to sex, and that was just a little bit odd alongside the childlike, whimsical, fairy tale-esque writing. So that was a little bit weird, but then I'm not necessarily overly surprised by that because I've read one other book by Neil Gaiman, which was Neverwhere, which I wasn't overly keen on, but that also was very weird and very odd, and I think that that's just his thing with writing. I possibly think that my enjoyment of this read was slightly hampered by the fact that I've seen the film, because the storyline is so closely matched in the film to what is in the book. I already knew exactly what was going to happen throughout, and I think that that always takes away a little bit of the suspense, which is a shame, but I would recommend it whether you have or haven't seen the film. Like I said, it's only very short. I managed to read it in a day. It was very fun, and it allowed me to pass the astronomy exam because it has the word star in the title, so that's a win as well. Not my favourite book of all time by any means, but it is one that I enjoyed and I gave it 3 stars. The next book that I picked up was To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han, and again, I have seen the film adaptation of this book. I watched it on Netflix when it came out around a year ago and I really enjoyed it. It's just a fun, easy to watch, and the book is essentially the same thing. It's fun, it's easy to read, and I whizzed through it super fast. It's around 470 pages, but I did manage to finish it in a day, and I think that's just because I'm so used to reading big, heavy fantasy books with tons of world building, a complex magic system, names that no one can pronounce, that kind of thing. And this There's no world building because it's set in our world. There aren't any complicated names involved, and the plot is really easy to follow. There isn't much complexity to get your head around, and so it was just a lot easier for me to follow the story, and so I read through it a lot more quickly. In case you don't know what this one is about, we follow our protagonist Lara Jean, who keeps letters hidden away in a hat box in her bedroom that are penned to her crushes, and they are never meant to see the light of day, but unfortunately they get mailed and her crushes end up with these letters, and she has to deal with the fallout of that, and it's just really funny and fun and easy to read. There were some elements of this book that I didn't like. There are some problematic things going on in this book, particularly our main character's reliance on the men in her life and the controlling nature of one of the relationship, well, the main relationship in this book. There's a lot of jealousy going on, there's a lot of controllingness going on, which I don't have an issue with those things being in books. What I have an issue with is when they're not challenged and when they're not identified as a problem in the book, and at no point does Jenny Han say, oh, by the way, these aren't good things. These aren't good things in a relationship to aspire to. You shouldn't feel beholden to other people in your life. And I really wish that she had done that. It doesn't necessarily affect me too much because I'm able to recognise those issues in this book and realise that those aren't good things in a relationship and those aren't character traits that should be promoted. They should be worked on, especially if it comes down to your self-esteem being heavily reliant on what others think of you, which is the case with our protagonist Lara Jean. And I think that that is a really relatable story, but we don't see Lara Jean trying to deal with those issues in this book. She just succumbs to them, and so I kind of hope that they get dealt with a little bit more later on in the series, because I do know that there are another 2 books after this one, which I will probably pick up at some point, albeit I'm not going to be prioritising them. But I do think it's a little bit of a shame that those problems weren't tackled, because I think there was a really good opportunity to tackle those problems and it just wasn't done. And particularly because it's a YA book, I especially wish that the author had done that, because if you've got very, very young readers picking this one up, it would be a real shame for them to be given the impression that those are good things in a relationship and that those are good character traits, because they're all things that could probably quite easily be improved upon, but there's just no effort made whatsoever to point that out. Which, like I say, it's a shame, but myself personally, aside from those issues, I did really enjoy this read. I found it fun, I found it easy, it gave me what I wanted. It was my only unread contemporary on my shelf, so naturally I picked it up for the subject Muggle Studies, which was to read a contemporary book, and I gave it 3 stars. Then my final OWLS exam was Care of Magical Creatures, and I have to admit that I had some problems with this one. So the first book that I picked up for that was Nevernight by J. Kristoff, and I was really struggling with it. So at about 50 pages, I felt like I wasn't really getting anywhere with it, and so I thought, let me put this down, maybe this isn't the read for me right now, and I'll try something else. So then I picked up The City of Dreaming Books by Walter Moores, and again I got about 50 pages in and it just wasn't jamming with me, and so I thought, still not getting on with this one, let me put it down. So what I ended up reading is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. What I will say is I'm not going to talk about these 2 books here because I am still planning on reading them. In fact, I've picked Nevernight back up and I'm now on page 200, and I haven't picked City of Dreaming Books back up yet, but I am planning on finishing reading this one after Nevernight. So they will be in a wrap-up video in the future, so I'm not going to talk about them for now. But for Care of Magical Creatures, I ended up reading Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. And again, I managed to read this book in just one day. It's only just over 300 pages, so again, it's not particularly long, and it's young adult fantasy, so it's the same situation. There's not as much heavy world building. There's not as many complex character names. There isn't a hugely complex magic system, at least not in this book. I suspect that we'll get more into that in the next book. But for now, this book follows a character named Alina, who discovers that she has magic that she never realised she had. And so she has to go off to a magic school, and that's one of my favourite tropes. I mean, I love Harry Potter, and so anything with a magic school is just so nostalgic to me, and I pretty much always enjoy it. Now, I had some skepticism going into this book. I actually hauled this book at the same time that I hauled To All the Boys I Loved Before, because I had discovered them both really through BookTube, and I was really interested to read it, but I just hadn't got around to it. And then there was the announcement that they are making a Netflix TV show in the Grishaverse, so this is the first book in the Grishaverse, and then the rest of the original Grisha trilogy, so Siege and Storm and Ruin and Rising, are going to be part of this TV show, as are Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, I believe. And so that has meant that a lot more people have been reading this series recently, and it's been getting a bit of criticism. A lot of people don't seem to like it very much, mostly because it's incredibly trope heavy, but I think it's one of the first fantasy YA trilogies that was dealing with all of these tropes, and so I don't think that's necessarily a criticism. And to be honest, I quite like a lot of tropes. There aren't many tropes that I don't really enjoy, and so I really enjoyed this book. I found it really easy to read. The narrative style was perfect. It was clear. It wasn't overly full of exposition that's there unnecessarily, unlike this book, which is full of unnecessary exposition, in my opinion. But we'll come to that later. Not in this video, next month probably. I'm not going to finish that this month now. But this really took me by surprise, because I was actually going into it quite skeptical, thinking, oh no, lots of people have been really critical of this recently, maybe I'm not going to enjoy it. But I really did, and I'm really looking forward to picking up the next one, and I would highly recommend it. I'd say don't be put off by all of the negative attention this has been getting. I think probably what's happening is a lot of people that usually wouldn't be into this kind of thing are picking it up because it's being made into a Netflix show, and they're not liking it because it's not the kind of thing they usually like to read, and then they're criticising the book for it, which I don't think is fair, because if you're not into this kind of thing, then it's not really surprising if you don't enjoy it. So if you do like fantasy and you do like YA fantasy, I think this is a great one. It's really, really fun, and I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think there's really much more to say than that. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and that's it. I read 12 books for the Owls. I actually read 15 books this month, which again, I'll address that in the wrap up, which will be in a couple of days. But that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks! Bye!